DIYers, what's going on? Mike Borders with the Mike Borders channel. Thank you for watching. Hey, we're talking jet skis today. In today's video, we are going to show you how to properly and safely replace that rear step protective sleeve or foam cover pad, whatever you want to call it. Let's take a look. All right, DIYers, at the workstation now, and the workbench is on the other side of the jet ski. You can see it back there. And in-house for the winter for DIY repair videos is my mom and dad's Sea-Doo jet ski. And we've been doing a lot to this. It's just shy of heading out and going back to the lake. And down below in the comment section as well as the description section, we are going to have several helpful links. And you'll notice this little latch here, it's not screeching, screaming, or squealing because we have it properly lubricated. And in the event that you do not lubricate your latches, well, guess what? They stiffen up over time and they end up breaking. That is not what you want. However, if that happens, we got you covered. We have replaced this latch, and that link will be down below as well. In addition, this little spring-loaded latch here for your storage compartment, we have replaced that. That link will be down below. We replaced the start-stop cap as well as the start-stop push button on the back side of that cap that has the wiring that feeds all the way through your handlebar and downstream. And coming back here, here is today's project. Again, the little step protective pad or sleeve. My goodness, this is probably the original from 2003. Look at that. Dry rotted, ripped, begging for replacement. Again, that's the little step that we put our foot on when we're in the water. Grab a hold of up here and pull ourselves up onto the jet ski. And we are going to replace that. You got some hinges down here. We are going to lubricate those at the tail end of the project. And what we'll do is head to the workbench and grab the proper tools. Coming to the workbench, again, DIYers, we have been busy all winter long replacing several parts on the jet ski, from the ignition coils, 2 of them, starter, spark plug wires, spark plugs, the oil sensor that goes inside the oil tank, as well as that start-stop cap and the wiring, and the coolant temp sensor. And here's the little push button that goes on the inner side or back side of this little cap here that I was just mentioning, and the wire harness. Always reference your exact serial number service manual when you are working on your jet skis or boats to alleviate any mistakes and to ensure you're doing everything properly and correctly. However, to the tools, we need a ratchet and socket and a 10mm in our case, and it's trial and error until you find the right hex key out of your set. Taking a big step back to the aft or rear portion of the jet ski, I've got my Craftsman stool, and if you hear a bunch of noise, that is the visqueen mat I've got on the floor to protect the carpet. Wife approved, by the way, to bring the jet ski in-house for DIY repair videos during the winter. However, I did not get wife approved to ever start it in the house. And again, 10mm socket. We are going to loosen up the 10mm nut, in our case, on either side. And on the back, I've got a hex bolt that I will use a hex key to loosen everything up and pull that step off of its respective mounts. However, taking a step back, I do want to just show you how damaged that pad really is. I can basically remove or peel that old dry rotted and ruined pad off of the step without removing the step. With the camera repositioned, I'm going to do my best to not get in your way and give you good camera angles as well as lighting. Again, 10mm nut here, and I will align the socket accordingly. And on the back side is the hex bolt as shown here, and I'm going to loosen the nut. And once I do that, I'll lift this up just a little bit and come back here and again loosen up that nut. Do not lose that. I'll set it up top, and from here I'll pull the hex key tool out. I'll come to the opposite side and do the exact same. At this point, I can pull the tool up, and if all goes as planned, I can basically pull up on these bolts. and they look like they're pretty seized in there, so I'll just loosen them up with the tool, and I can carefully unscrew them by hand. Just be patient, don't rush this, don't damage anything as you work through this. Once you get the bolts out, you can ever so carefully begin pulling the entire outer bar or step out from each of its respective mounts. And do this simultaneously. In other words, carefully pull it out from this side at the same time as this side, because if you pull them offset or in an offset manner, you're going to bind it up and bend it, and that's not what you want. You do not want to damage either of the respective mounts. And you may need to give it some friendly taps. And it's coming out, but DIYers, I'm pretty confident that this is the original pad, which means chances are this has not come out of its respective mounts in 20 years. So you might have a little built-up corrosion that makes it tough to remove. Just be patient. However, it is okay to use a rubber mallet very, very carefully. And I am basically to the tail end of this side of each bar coming out of its mounts. And you want to just be careful at this stage, because if you're not careful, when you remove this bar or step from its respective mounts, these mounts are spring loaded. And if you've got your hands in any portion of this mount or hinge section, you could hurt yourself. So again, be careful. And I will carefully shift it up. There it is, DIYers. Again, it looks as if this has never come out of the hinges or respective mounts since it was built in 2003. And because of that, well, it was a little tough to get out, but we got it. And these mounts you can actually move by hand, which is extremely important when it comes time to re-secure this in here. We will have to pull these out and align this bar to align the holes so we can re-secure the hardware. Let's head to the workbench. Back to the workbench, and DIYers, there it is. And what I did was move the schematic again for our exact serial number jet ski to the top, and there is the entire mechanism for the step and pad. You can see number 41, the pad. And that entire unit inside that box is basically the entire spring-loaded mount. So what we'll do is clean up any and all corrosion on each end of this bar before we remove that old pad. With the camera repositioned, again, DIYers, we just need to clean up these portions of either side of the bar. You can see they are corroded and dirty. Look at that. And as far as the shape or condition of the circle of the step, they're not damaged or bent. That will come in very handy when it comes time to put everything back together. And again, look at how bad the old sleeve is. And I might just peel that off right now. Check that out. Look at that. Pretty bad condition. As you see, some paint's coming off, but I'm not surprised being 20 years old. And this sleeve, in the condition that it is in, didn't do any favors for the paint. There's the bar or step. And look at that. Again, probably the original from the manufacturer, right off the assembly line. It's about time. 20 years in the making and ready to be replaced. And from here, you do have the option to, well, sand this down and have it powder coated and painted if that's what you want to do. Honestly, might be a good idea, especially if you're in salt water. However, in our case, we are in fresh water. And DIYers, that plays a big role or difference in corrosion to your jet ski and parts. Again, there it is with the protective sleeve removed. Next, what I did was I briefly cleaned up the workbench, and then I applied some paper towel, rested the step or bar back onto the workbench and paper towel. I grabbed some 400 grit sandpaper. That is what I recommend when cleaning the corrosion off your step. And do not rush this. Be patient. Go slow. Again, all I'm going to do is basically break away any of the loose corrosion, and that is going to help me when it comes time to install the new pad, because the last thing you want is jagged edges or corrosion on the step or bar itself that will damage the brand new sleeve or protective pad. You do not want that. So again, just go slow, be precise, be patient, do it right. After you spend a couple minutes and sand any rough edges or corrosion away, again, be very careful, because the last thing you want to do is take off the entire layer of paint. However, in our case, unfortunately, we can't do anything about this or this over here unless we sand the entire bar down or sandblast it and have it repainted. And honestly, that's a really good idea. So again, as you sand, just do your best just to remove any hard edges or corrosion from the step itself, and try to keep as much as the original paint on the step or bar as you possibly can. And after that, what I did was get a paper towel wet, and I'm just going to clean the step. I grabbed a second wet paper towel, and again, all I'm doing right now is just cleaning all the dust and loose debris that we just sanded, as well as getting any corrosion out of the inner portion here. And unfortunately, well, there's a lot being on there for 20 years. This is no brand new part or piece. It's got some age to it. And I will apply brand new or clean paper towel and set the step or bar on it. Now to a different camera angle and close up. And again, cleaning it will go a long way when it comes time to install the brand new protective pad or sleeve. And that is what we'll do next. Back to the aft or rear portion of the jet ski, and again, we are going to open up our brand new OEM replacement step cover sleeve or foam cover or pad, whatever you want to call it. Back to the workbench, and resting now on our step is our replacement pad or foam cover protector sleeve and the inside of it. And again, this is OEM, not an aftermarket. We were very fortunate to be able to find an OEM, again, number 41 right there. And I'm going to use Dawn dish soap and have some paper towel readily accessible as we lubricate the step or bar in order to allow us to slide that protective sleeve onto that bar or step. And DIYers, I kindly encourage or recommend not to use any of these lubrications such as Gear Lube or Extreme Grease or 24C, because unfortunately those products will eat away at that foam over time. That's not what you want. And again, we're going to use Dawn dish soap, and soon after we install this foam pad and get the jet ski back on the water, well, that dish soap is going to maybe create a few bubbles, but you already create bubbles down in that location anyways as the jet ski is up and running, and all that dish soap will go away within a few minutes. And again, paper towel, have those readily accessible because you are going to get dish soap on your fingers. And again, here's the Dawn dish soap that I'm going to use down below in the comment section as well as the description section. Will be a link on where to purchase this. And again, all I'm going to do is lubricate the entire bar as shown here. Oh, check those out. Look at that, little bubbles. And again, I'm going to get the entire bar. Especially the beginning portions of either side of the bars. And I'll grab some paper towel, kind of clean up a little bit of the soap from my hands. Next, I'll grab the protective foam cover or sleeve, and I will lubricate the few inches in on either side. And from here, this is the tough part, DIYers. I'm going to turn it this way and come off the workbench as shown here and carefully align it and get a good grip of it. And once you get it on, just carefully rotate it back and forth and give it inward pressure. And DIYers, this is not easy. It's going to be a little tough. You're just going to have to be patient and have some friendly strength. And you might need to take a couple breaks. As you can see, I'm about 2 inches in right now. And again, it's not easy, but it's not supposed to be. You don't want this thing being able to slide easily and freely when you're out in the water and trying to put your foot on it and grab the upper portion of the ski to pull yourself up. And I'm going to come in the other side here, and I'm going to pour some dish soap in there. To again lubricate the inner portion and really let that go down. And it's a good idea as you get closer, just continue lubricating the bar or step. Right now I'm about 3 to 4 inches on now. And real quick, what I did was I poured a bunch of soap inside here. And as you can see, I'm going to just carefully rotate it and allow the soap to really lubricate the entire inner portion of this protective sleeve. Quick update, DIYers, I have carefully, and believe me, ever so carefully, locked the step in the vise. And on the opposite end, I put a paper towel in the hole to prevent any of the dish soap that I squeezed in this portion to run out the opposite end. And I'm going to carefully, again, without over tightening the actual step in the vise, I don't want this to be crimped or bent in any way. I'm going to continue lubricating this, loosening up the vise, sliding it down, resecuring it, and rotating this foam cover on the step. Continue to lubricate the step or bar as you make your turn and continue on. And as you turn the upper portion that is just now coming onto the step, because in our case we've got about 6 inches already on, when we turn it or twist it up here, the bottom part does not twist. So we need to carefully twist it up here and then come down below and twist it. And you'll do this in sequence as you feed this entire sleeve over the step. And again, DIYers, be patient. Let me give you a better view as we make that turn. Again, I'm turning up top, turning in the middle, turning down below. Up top, middle, down below. In addition, I'm going to come back up top, and again, here's the other side. I'm going to carefully pour more soap inside the other end and allow that soap to flow all the way down and lubricate the inner portion of that foam cover. And DIYers to the opposite end, and I am making progress. I'm moving about 1 inch every minute or so, and I grabbed a hot pad for some extra grip. And basically right there is where the top of the bar is. And what I'm doing is I'm coming up above it and just rotating it. And by doing that, it basically opens up the seam around the actual inner step or bar, allowing for additional dish soap to fall a little further down on that bar to, again, improve the lubrication. And a quick reposition of the camera. Another update, DIYers. I went ahead and grabbed a brand new pair of gardening gloves, and I need that extra grip. And you can see that little chip right there, slowly making my way around. Back up to the top, turn it, push it down, help it along that turn, and pull it forward. Again, I'm going about an inch every couple minutes. And DIYers, a quick reminder, when you get to the end of the portion that you lubricated with the soap, go ahead and apply some more. Coming back up and lubricating the top to again allow that soap to flow all the way into the area where the foam or cover is meeting the bar. It makes a big difference. I can feel the difference when I turn this and separate the seam from the inner portion of the foam to the bar, allowing a little gap in between the inner portion of the foam and the bar for that soap to seep into the middle or between the two. Making progress. However, don't give up. We're more than halfway there. And DIYers, to another update. We have now reached the second turn and have had to reposition the step accordingly, as shown here. And again, keep it lubricated with the soap as you turn and twist every which way with some friendly muscle to get that sleeve on. And a quick reposition of the camera. And again, DIYers, the extra grip with these gloves, I'm going to post these down below in the comment section as well as the description section to purchase these. They are a huge help to this project. Alright, DIYers, to another update, and yeah, it's been about 35 minutes, and we are just shy of reaching the hole for the bolt on one side, and we are maybe about an inch away from the tip, and about an inch and a half away from the tip here. I've now pulled the step out of the vise, and DIYers, a huge asset to the project, a vise. And scrolling above right now is a link to a video on how to install a swivel vise to your workbench. Again, a huge benefit having that. And a couple things to point out. You can see the hole on this side, there's about an inch and a half remaining until the end. And on this side, we have not got to the end. We are just shy. And again, this is the OEM part, so it is cut to the exact measurement for our step and serial number. So we actually have to continue pushing this side all the way on. Because if you get to this point where you've got a hole accessed here and your entire step is covered with the brand new sleeve, but you've got this portion inside the protective foam or cover, you have to continue pushing this on. And as you install these, well, this portion right here can get stretched, and we actually have to continue compressing it to alleviate premature failure, because again, in the event that you have this stretched and you leave it like that, it is going to fail prematurely. In addition, each end of the protective sleeve or foam cover is cut and melted in a way that is different from in the event that you cut it. If you cut it, you no longer have that heated seal on the end, which increases the life of the actual foam piece. So keep that in mind. I'll show you what we're going to do next. Alright, DIYers, back to the aft portion or rear portion of the jet ski. It's just above us. However, I've got the camera positioned down so I can show you the visqueen and what we'll do next. Again, here is the little step. And since we ran out of grip or portion of the bar to grab with a vise, we have to bring it onto the floor. And again, we just have a little bit more to go, about an inch and a half, to push this side on and continue pushing it and compressing the foam cover so we can access this other screw hole. So come on here, rest it carefully on the ground, and give it some friendly weight. And push it down. And you can see it's almost flush now, and I will continue moving it as we were when it was connected to the vise, and continue alleviating the stress of the stretch on the foam pad itself. Because again, if you leave it stretched out like this, you are going to experience premature failure of the foam. That's not what you want. And continue this process again until we have access to that hole. And keep that hole open. Back to the workbench, and there it is, DIYers, the finished product. And again, do not cut your foam cover sleeve if it's OEM. Please don't cut it. Continue to push it on, because in the event that you don't push it on, again, you're going to leave that foam cover or sleeve stretched, and it will lead to premature failure. Taking a step back, and before we head back to the aft or rear portion of the jet ski to reverse the steps and install our step with a brand new protective sleeve on it, I do want to give you a comparison with old and new. And again, 20 years old, the original, just bad shape, begging for a replacement. And just like our brand new sleeve, it is not cut as you see here. So again, I know I've said it a few times, and I'll say it again, DIYers, if it is OEM, do not cut the new sleeve, because if you do, you don't have that heat singe tip or end on either side of the sleeve, and it will begin to deteriorate at the tip or ends. You don't want that. Next, I spent a minute or two and cleaned out the workbench, and in front of us now is the hardware, or the 2 bolts and nuts that secure the step onto the back portion of the jet ski into the spring-loaded mounts. And we are going to use that steel brush and clean up the thread before we install them. Got the camera set back, and again, I'm going to undo each of the nuts from the bolts. And right here, you can see just a little bit of buildup of corrosion, both right there and up here. And again, we're just going to carefully clean the thread with a steel brush and try to get as much of that out of the thread as we can. And it'll go quick. At this point, the hardware thread is a lot cleaner than what it was. As you see, a bunch of debris came out of the thread. And what we're going to do now is grab our Quicksilver Marine Grease 24C, and we are going to use this grease to lubricate the spring and hinge portion of the mount that our step slides into and secures to. All right, DIYers, to the aft or rear portion of the jet ski, and there is our step with a brand new sleeve. However, we will install that here shortly. Coming down to the retractable or spring-loaded mounts or housings. Listen to that. We need to lubricate that and get that squeak silenced. And inside there, you can see a spring, and we're again going to use that 24C to lubricate these springs, both inside here and maybe a little bit on either seam from the hard mounted plates here and the retractable or spring loaded housing. This one's not that bad. However, this one is. And down below in the comment section as well as description section will be a link on where to purchase that marine grease. Again, 24C. I've got the camera positioned, and again, the marine grease 24C. And that's what it looks like inside. And what we'll do, set the cap aside, and I'll just grab some with my finger. And do your absolute best not to get sloppy or messy with this. And again, I'm going to shift the housing down and put this grease as far in to that section where the spring is as I can. In addition, I am going to lubricate the inner housing to allow me to insert the step a lot easier, as well as the spring. Once you get that grease in that spring, just move it just a little bit. Allow it to work itself into that spring or coiled portion of the spring. And I'll add some more. What I'll do next is add a little bit of grease in between the seams, again with this outer plate on either side and the rotational or spring-loaded housing or mount. And after I lubricate all of this, I am going to clean it up with some paper towel. Again, no need to get sloppy with it. And I'll move it just to the left to widen this seam here and add some 2,4-C grease in there. Come to the back side, same thing. And I'll do the same exact thing as I did here over here to lubricate that hinge or housing as well as spring. Making progress. This one is lubricated, and all I'm going to do now is carefully clean up any of the grease off the areas where it doesn't need to be. And by doing this, it's going to alleviate the person that uses the step as we're out riding the jet ski from accidentally putting their foot or dragging a leg or swimsuit over the grease and basically ruining their swimsuit. That would not be good. At this point, I've cleaned up the surfaces around the actual spring-loaded hinge. And another trick I want to show you, in the event that you're having a hard time putting that 2,4-C grease down into that spring, which is right here, you can grab a Q-tip and basically get some on the tip of the Q-tip and really push it down into the spring. Again, that's if you can't get it in with your finger. And again, we want to really lubricate that spring because that is really the heart and soul of this retractable housing and what ends up making all the noise over time, even more so than the metal on metal rubbing. Again, just another trick I wanted to show you. All right, DIYers, change the camera angles and now to a close-up. And we did our absolute best to put as much 2,4-C grease into that area where the spring is, and I notice a significant difference. No more screeching, and it will only get more lubricated over time, which is nice. A little bit of binding there with the spring, but again, that 2,4-C grease will only get better as the spring continuously is moved, and it will lubricate that. From here, we are going to install the step, and one thing you might run into is a different shape on each housing. As you can see here, not sure if you can really tell, but it's more of an oval as opposed to a perfect circle. However, the port side is a perfect circle, and when I come up to this area or opposite end of the step, that is a more oval shaped. Again, not sure if you can really make that oval out, and this is a more perfect circle shape. So the step is going to be installed in the exact same holes it came out of because you won't be able to put that more oval shaped portion of the step in the perfect circle and vice versa. Just wanted to point that out. In addition, a very important thing to point out inside here, you can see that little spring tab right there. And it might be easier to see on this one. Check that out. It basically coils in and faces inward to the center of the housing. Trying to give you a better view of it. There it is. And again, very important step to point out because as we shift the step back inside this housing, the housing of the step actually will have to slide in between the top portion of the spring up there and the top portion of the housing. And what I mean by that is this part right here will again slide in between the housing and that spring. And if you're having a hard time pushing it in, you might need to come in here with a very fine tip flathead screwdriver and push the spring down, and you can gain access to it right through that little hole. So again, I wanted to show you that as well. All right, DIYers, a quick reposition of the camera. It is time to install our step with the brand new protective sleeve. And again, port side in our case, more of a perfect circle. Starboard side, more of a oval, oddly. But I'm going to pull the housing down ever so slightly, insert it maybe 1/8 of an inch, come over to starboard side and install it in there. From here, I'm just going to carefully push it in simultaneously. And I notice on starboard side, it's really pushing out and turning this housing. So just carefully push it back in and install this in sequence. And what I mean by that is don't push port side in all the way until it's flush with the hole and then come over here to do it on starboard side. You will bend your step. From here, you might need to give it some friendly inward pressure, because at this point we are right at the point or location inside the housing where the spring is. So again, we need that extra friendly inward force to push the spring down to allow this portion of the step to slide in between the spring and the housing. Couple taps starboard side, couple taps port side, back to starboard side, port side, starboard. And I notice I actually have to pull down on each side, which again will kind of weaken up the stretch to give me more room to continue pushing the step into the housing where the holes line up. And as you do this, just do your best not to pull the step back out. You don't want to start over. And I am very close. And there we go. The holes are perfectly aligned. I am now going to grab each of the bolts, and the hex portion goes on the inner portion of the housing that will retract up. And I'll slide that right through. Come to the bottom side. All I'm going to do now is hand tighten it. And as always, do your best not to cross thread any portion of the thread with a nut. And I will now come starboard side and do the same thing. Now that they are hand tightened, I'm going to revert back to my socket ratchet and hex key. I'm going to lock it in place on this side, come underneath, and tighten it in place. As always, do not over tighten this because you don't want to bend the housing or inner portion of the step and spring, but you want it snug. Now to starboard side. And after you verify it is secure, much better. Alright DIYers, now to a different camera angle, and there it is, the brand new protective sleeve installed with the step onto their respective mounts. What a difference. And again, the old one lasted 20 years, and this new one will carry the torch from here moving forward. And as far as the greased portion, we are going to add a little bit more 2,4-C grease to that side, maybe that side in between the seams before we launch the jet ski. Again, get that squeaking taken care of. And we really hope this helps. DIYers, as always, we are here to help. Let us know if you have any questions. And again, we have several video links down below, from lubricating the seat latches to replacing the seat latch and storage compartment latch. We also, down below, is a link on how to replace that spring-loaded latch there, start-stop button, as well as the start-stop switch behind that button, and the wire harness feeding in to your handlebar. And a lot more. We replaced the starter, the injectors, the air regulator, the fuel regulator, both ignition coils, the plugs, the wires, and much more, including oil filter, and again, more. And those links will be down below in the comment section. From here, again, we hope this helps. Hey, do us a favor, below the video, you will see that thumbs up icon. Click on that, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Definitely ring your YouTube bell. That would be very helpful to us. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching.